Okay, let's look at question number 22. Which expression is equivalent to x to the fourth minus y to the fourth? So if we look, all these expressions are examples that are being factored. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to factor x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. So let's rewrite our expression. So I have x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. If you look, there is no GCF because that's an x and that's a y. And I can't pull out that exponent because it's an x and a y again, so there is no common factor. So I have to think to myself, okay, so I can't GCF it, I can't do the x method or any of that stuff because there's only two terms. So that means we're probably going to have to do a difference of two squares. So whenever we see this type of factoring, we're going to do a difference of two squares because look, I have two terms, a minus sign, and they're both perfect squares. So what I'm going to do right away is make two sets of parentheses, and I'm going to break up my x to the fourth and my y to the fourth. So I have to ask myself, how do I split up an x to the fourth? Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I can actually write out x squared. Then I can think to myself, how do I make a minus sign in math? Well, the only way to make a minus in math is if you have a plus and a minus. And then I have to ask myself, how do I make a y to the fourth? Well, same way I did that x to the fourth. I just split it up into 2. So now I have a y squared and a y squared. So for this answer choice, it's going to be choice number 1. Now, if this was a part 2 question, it might say factor completely. Well, you can actually take this a step further. I can factor x squared minus y squared just how I did x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. Now, I can't factor my first set of terms because that's a plus sign, so I'm just going to rewrite it. So I have x squared plus y squared. But now I'm going to factor x squared minus y squared. Well, how do I make an x squared? That's going to be an x and an x. I still have that plus minus. And now I have to figure out, how do I make y squared? Well, that's a y and a y. So that answer choice doesn't appear, but if this was a part 2 question and said factor completely, this would be your final answer.